How old is your financial advisor? For many Americans, the image that first comes to mind of a financial advisor is an older man. And there's data to back that up. Around 40% of financial advisors are set to retire in the next 10 years, which is ultimately going to shake up the advising landscape. In this episode of Gimme Some Truth, and arguably the youngest collection of people we've had in studio before, our three youngest advisors at Walkner Condon talk about that future of financial advisors and some of the stats that stick out to Mitch, Alicia, and Polly. It's time for some truth.
Hello, welcome back to Gimme Some Truth. We have a few of us in the booth today, and it might be actually the youngest collection of advisors in a podcast at once in Walkner Condon history. I don't know if we can actually fact check that or not, but as we all entered the booth today, we were talking of what are we actually going to talk about, because our fearless leader, Clint, told us to change course on a topic that we will leave unmentioned at this point. So instead, we have some advisors here that are, dare I say, the future in the industry.
I think that's a fair thing to say.
I agree.
And we're
not planning on leaving.
Yeah,
no,
right.
No.
I've told clients a couple of times, Mitch and I will never retire. We love what we do. We're here to stay, and we're young enough that this is certainly for the next 20, 30 years. I mean, we're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna kind of run with that theme, and we all pulled up some respective sources and things like that we're going to talk about, kind of the future of advisors and how it relates to our firm and succession and things like that. So that's what we're going to kind of roll with today. So I'm Mitch in the booth here, and we also have Alicia, Polly, and then Dan is hot on the mic, I believe.
Very, very hot. Oh, wow.
Hot
a little too hot. A little too hot. Sorry.
Okay. Mic is live for Dan. So anyways, yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit about how this relates to our firm. And as a lot of you know too, we with Polly and Alicia, for example, they recently went through some of their testing and things like that. And all of us actually are career changers. But anyways, who wants to go first as far as maybe a fun fact or tidbit that they pulled up in our 10 minutes of prep before this call here?
Well, this is completely unrelated, but I felt like I just needed to drop this into this podcast at some point. But we did a happy hour yesterday at Garth's, and
Garth's Brew Bar, check it out, Monroe Street.
Great
plug
beer.
for Garth.
Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I learned is that somebody who specializes, a trained professional working in the hospitality and alcoholic beverage industry who specializes in beer, is called a cicerone. So it's similar to like a sommelier for wine. There is a separate.
Is it specific to beer?
Specific to beer. It's called a cicerone. So that is everybody's random interesting fact for the day. So you're welcome for that knowledge.
I love that. Do we dare go into trebuchets yet too while we're on the topic of?
Yes. Also at happy hour yesterday, I had to explain to the group the difference between a trebuchet and a catapult, because my extensive knowledge of RPGs has given me some interesting knowledge about medieval weaponry. And this was also relevant to beer and related, because Wisconsin Brewing Company does a pumpkin shuck every October where they use a trebuchet to launch pumpkins into the pond. And it's amazing
exciting
to watch. If you haven't seen it.
And it's very family friendly. My family was there this year.
Yes. If you
Are they
haven't
like really
seen it,
large pumpkins, or just like normal size ones that you'd?
I'd say normal.
Okay.
Like you could definitely carve them.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
Be kind of cool.
your
if they were,
typical
like, really
carvable
big.
size.
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay.
yeah. So a catapult, they use a trebuchet, which has like a counterweight system that is used to launch the pumpkins. Where a catapult, you pull it back and it's tension based, and that launches the pumpkin. So different weapons there. So you guys are learning a lot on this podcast. You never knew that you were going to be learning about beer tasting and trebuchets. So
somehow, can we work something cheesy into the title of this podcast, Dan, as far as like, how we're like launching like a trebuchet into the future with all these, these young youthful advisors in the room here?
Oh, I mean, that's my specialty, is cheesy titles. So
Good.
you didn't have
our
to ask.
firm is a trebuchet,
anyway.
launching young advisors
Yeah.
into the future of the financial planning industry.
Thanks for doing my job. I have the title already. Thanks.
I think it shows too, Alicia, your wealth of knowledge, not only about financial,
but about
advising,
useless
but about
medieval weaponry. Yes.
some more unique items as well.
And
I thought it was very interesting. Dan and I even looked it up afterwards because we were like, this sounds like a French word. And Sil, who is a native French speaker, didn't even know it was a French word. So we taught him something too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
So this particular topic is something that was inspired by a few things. One is just a matter of who's in the room, but then two, every now and then the question pops up when we're meeting with existing clients or potential future clients of what is the succession plan look like? There's so many advisors out there that are getting closer to retirement age. And I'm not talking at Walkner Condon Financial Advisors. Yes, we'll have advisors retire at some point, but in the industry as a whole, it skews to an older, closer to retirement age for your typical financial advisor. So that question might pop up because if someone's looking to hire us or you're in the market for an advisor, sometimes the reason is, hey, my current advisor is retiring. I know they're retiring in the next handful of years, let's say. We want to come up with a plan. And that's why they're shopping around in a lot of cases. So the succession plan part of the piece is, well, what talented, knowledgeable, good advisors do you have on staff? And then how are you also going to grow that next generation? So that was kind of what inspired this, is some of those questions that we've been hearing live from clients, prospective clients in conversations.
Well, I think there's two things that can happen. An older advisor cannot have a succession plan. They're getting on in age, they're getting close to retiring, and maybe they don't have somebody. They don't have a younger person who they have a plan to transition their clients to. Or they have somebody, but maybe it's somebody that the current clients don't really feel comfortable with or isn't maybe up to the level of expertise and knowledge that their previous advisor has. So even if they have a succession plan and they have somebody in mind, maybe it's not a good one. And I think that kind of coincides with some of the articles that we've been reading that have been talking about sort of a vacuum of talent in the industry. There's just not enough young, talented people going into the industry right now. And so you have maybe these firms where they're trying to put in a succession plan, but they're struggling to find the right young, talented person to come in and fill that role.
And sometimes it's difficult too, because there's so many situations that we see where people that are young and they're in college and they want to become a financial advisor. They like the idea and concept of it. They go to school for it, and then they end up doing something else because, let's say, that first job out of college, they were just trying to sell life insurance or something. And we've seen this so many times, and then they get burned out of financial services, maybe in general, and they do something completely different. So sometimes there's this path through universities and things that people actually find themselves burned out of the industry before they even truly get into it. And so I think that's kind of an interesting thing too, because that's one pipeline as far as, you got a formal training, undergraduate, let's say, in a financial planning program. But then you look at our firm and we have former lawyers, former engineers, former this, former HR, former charitable donation in the nonprofit world, like in Polly's case. So we've mentioned those things, of course, in past podcasts, but it's interesting because sometimes you have no idea where that talent is really going to come from.
That's a good point.
Well, that's the reason I didn't get into this industry sooner. I've always had a passion for finances, but I didn't want to sell insurance and I didn't want to sell investments. And I thought that's what the industry was. I didn't know there was a way to be a financial advisor that wasn't selling products. And it wasn't until I was older and realized that there was a different way to do it that I said, that's what I want to do. That's what I've wanted to do all along. I didn't know that existed.
That's a really good point. I didn't either, really, until I had, years ago sat down with Nate and he kind of talked about the firm in a way that, explained exactly what we do here. And it was eye-opening to think oh, this is actually something that I could see myself doing, right? I can put myself in those shoes. And I think that was hard for me for a long time because I never thought that was an industry I could break into, especially not necessarily having gone to school to get a finance degree.
Yeah.
So to your point, Mitch, that is so that it's a really benefit to this firm and to what, Clint and Nate have set up, in the sense that they, it's succession planning, yes, but it's also a training program in ways. They want to hire people who want to be in this industry for a while, and how do you do that without, or how do you do that with younger advisors without, giving them those like one step at a time opportunities, which in my case is like, that's, what's happening for me right now, which is wonderful. But it's not, it's not just like hiring someone right out of college. Yes, you could do that, but also like hiring someone right out of college, but then giving them those like transition points throughout their career. It's training essentially.
Like having a growth path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, that growth path, we do try to grow internally, kind of like everyone is saying here. And what we want, the ideal situation is to have skin in the game for our advisors, because with that, we'll create some longevity. We've always said, I can't even say we, because I wasn't here at the start of the firm, but Clint and Nate, when they started the firm over a decade ago, have always said that we want to have long-term client relationships, multi-generational client relationships. So if client A and B then have a son and daughter, let's say we want to invest into that portion of the relationship too, to keep that relationship going. So with that, we need youth, right? I don't know if we're older than youth, right? Is that a poor choice of words? Youth? We're pretty youthful. We have energy, I guess.
I like to think of myself that way.
Yeah.
I think it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
Well, Alicia, we were just talking about this before the podcast started, but what time did you go to bed last night?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. 8:30. I
nothing wrong
like
with
to
it.
contribute that to the happy hour though.
Yeah.
Because I think it was the beer from the happy hour that just kind of knocked me out.
Yeah.
And for the record, there's only one beer, I think, right?
Yes.
Well, a single beer.
13% alcohol. I'm also still jet lagged. I'm very much a night person.
Okay.
I am normally up till 11 o'clock, midnight, later than that, playing video games, watching shows. So 8:30 for me is very unusual.
I'm the opposite, where I'm like, I could be in bed by 8:30.
Yeah.
And I was out till about 10 p.m. last night, dinner with friends, and I felt like
that was past your bedtime.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, so did we have to delay the podcast for you then, Polly, or for Dan?
Nope.
Polly was
not
here.
me.
No,
She
it was
was ready
Dan.
to
It was
go.
Dan.
Stand
I
there.
know.
I'll admit to it.
Yeah.
On live mic.
Sorry, Dan. Well, see,
anyway.
if I throw you under the bus like this, that's why it's good that we have you on a hot mic, so you can actually
Defend
respond.
yourself. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I accept it. I did want to bring us back to one stat. I don't know if you had this, Mitch, in one of your stats, but
Okay, well, let me look.
Dan, keeping us on topic.
assetmap.com, the industry retention rates, and they don't reference where they got this stat from in this blog piece, but they said 15 to 16% of advisors are retained in their first 4 years in the industry, which
That
low.
feels very low.
I mean, even if it was, I think I saw one other article that was maybe in the 30s, but still, either way, not very high.
No.
And there's, like you said, there's plenty of reasons for it. You guys
So
can
now
always
that's
tell me that.
industry-
industry-wide. I would be curious to know the breakdown between, is that at large broker-dealers? Is that at RIAs?
Insurance,
Is
is
there a
it-
difference? Are
I would
those
like to see
numbers
the itemized numbers.
Yep. Because I feel like that would be a different number depending on the type of firm that you're working in.
Yeah. And the other thing, like one of my little facts here that I pulled up was directly from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, which I would like to say is a pretty legit source here. and I say that because it says employment of personal financial advisors is projected to grow 15% from 2021 to 2031. So in the next decade, essentially, we're 1 to 2 years into that, but it says much faster than the average for all occupations. So just because those jobs are growing that fast, but then you couple in some of the turnover with people first getting in industry, like, is that the reason why there's so many of these jobs available, is because the turnover? But then you also complicate it because older advisors are retiring. And I think by the time you mix all those things together, that's why they all kind of play together in a strange way.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's like, at face value, it looks like, great, there's all these jobs that are going to be growing over the next, projected, right?
Well, I think it's three reasons probably then. It's the industry is growing. Unfortunately there's high turnover in a lot of these positions, and maybe those are positions that people get burned out on the industry. But then it's also advisors retiring. So I think you're looking at kind of a multi reasons for why this is happening. One of the statistics I looked up, over the next 10 years, it's estimated that more than 111,000 advisors will retire, which represents more than 1/3 of the workforce and assets.
Wow.
And I think that's due to the other statistic here, according to a JD Power study, says that the average age of a financial advisor is about 55, with about 1/5 of industry professionals being 65 or older. I mean, that's a very high average age for a profession.
So what happens? And Alicia, you brought this up when we were chatting a little bit before this. So what might happen when an advisor retires on short notice and or unexpectedly, or something slightly more dire, right? Something happens to them health-wise. They could die. We never know when they're going to die, right? I'll leave it open to anyone who wants to respond, but what might happen if you're signed up with an advisor, there's no succession plan? What happens?
And I think that, shameless plug for our firm. I think that that's the advantage of having, as opposed to like a solo firm. And if you're a solo firm and you have a succession plan, maybe you have an agreement with another advisor that says, hey, if something happens to me, will you step in and take care of my clients, and vice versa? Maybe you have set up a plan, and if you're a solo advisor and you don't, maybe that's something you need to think about. But I think the benefit of having a small firm where there's multiple advisors is you have kind of that safety net. If something happens to you, you have other advisors at your firm that can kind of step in and take care of your clients. But even the next level of that is when you look at Clint and Nate, who are a team, and you look at Mitch and I, who are a team, if something happens to one of us, like, I'm going to have a relationship with Mitch's clients. He's going to have a relationship with mine. And there's a lot of clients that both of us will be working with them. And so if something happens to one of us, we already have that relationship there. We know the client. We know their situation. They know and trust us. And so it's that kind of backup plan is built in. So in addition to the fact that we're younger and we don't plan on retiring anytime soon, just because you're young doesn't mean that something can't happen, an accident, a health issue, whatever. But we kind of already have that built-in plan in place, I guess.
And our firm experienced that to some extent with Nate's health scare 2 years ago. I don't remember exactly when that was. And a lot of our clients and listeners are well aware of that, but Nate never anticipated getting sick like he did and being out and being in hospital several times and needing surgery and all these things. He was, I'll say, on the sideline for a significant amount of time. And even though we talk about these things, when it actually happens, right, it's difficult. But that's why Clint is there. That's why the rest of us stepped up to help cover some of the internal operations things that Nate's really good at. So that whole idea of having the team in place to continue the longevity, not only for the longevity of the business, but the clients, because the clients make the business, right? Mm-hmm. There's no business if there's no clients. So ultimately, if we can continue servicing our clients and keeping them in good shape for their financial goals, then how do we do that? We do it by building a team around us and building it internally as we try to grow for the decades to come. Dan, why do I feel like you're looking to say something right now?
I was just going to bring up the idea of robo-advisors and how that maybe fills the gap of humans.
Yeah.
So feel free to talk amongst yourselves about that, but I was just thinking about robo-advisors.
Yeah.
It's bigger trend in the industry.
It is.
Last few years.
Anyone want to take that?
Especially for our generation too, right?
Yeah. Anybody?
Polly, thoughts?
Of robo-advisors?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all have our thoughts of robo-advisors. That's why we're here. We're humans.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it fits some people, but I think it fits some people, especially younger generations, because they don't have more complicated situations. They don't have children. They might not have house. They might not, be switching jobs as frequent. Well, they probably are switching jobs more frequently. But with that said, I think, there's the benefit of having a human being is that you have a person to talk through those intricacies of your life with. You can't do that with a robo-advisor. But if you're younger, you don't meet certain minimums, whatever, that probably is a good, easy access into investing, right?
Yeah, it's a good entry point.
Exactly. But, eventually everyone starts using, a tax accountant to do their taxes because their situations get more difficult. Like, you don't need that when you're 23.
Yeah. I think the problem that a lot of people have, though, is they maybe start off doing their own taxes. They start off with a robo-advisor. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes what I've seen is people realize too late that they should probably get help.
It's when something
That's a great
went
It's when
wrong.
something bad happens. Or
it's like doctors too. Like you go to the doctor once
Yeah.
something actually goes wrong, and then you're like, well, it's probably past the point of no return.
or you get to the point
That is
doing
dire,
your own
I know,
Polly.
sorry.
Oh man, I'm
Jeez.
scared to go to the doctor now. If I can't-
Everyone go to the doctor.
oh.
Get your
Get a
annual
checkup.
exam.
Yeah.
But by the time you maybe realize that you need an accountant or you need a financial advisor, have there been mistakes that you've been making? Because I've definitely looked at past tax returns and have said, well, there's some mistakes here and they've cost you money. And you think you're saving money. Well, I'm going to do it myself and I'm going to save money. And certainly you can do that. But at some point, as your situation gets more complicated, you continue to think you can do it yourself. But if there's things you're missing and mistakes you're making, you're actually costing yourself money and you're not saving yourself money. And so it's knowing when that transition point is appropriate. When is that time that you need to switch from doing it yourself or from having a robo-advisor to actually talking to a real human that can make sure you're not missing these things and you're taking advantage of all the opportunities and not making some of those simple mistakes that are easy to make because it's a complicated, like taxes are complicated.
Yeah.
Even people who are tax professionals and financial professionals, they specialize because it's such a broad topic and you can't be an expert on everything, even within a certain area.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So for the average person to have enough knowledge to know all those things, it's just, you can't.
Well, I think that goes back to our firm too. And talking about succession planning, of talking about having the more tight-knit team like we do, like most people sit, very close to each other. Advisors talk to each other all day long here, bouncing questions off each other, learning every single day. You don't necessarily get that with robo-advisors. You don't get the added benefit of having a team of people and, having some tax information from this person. We have a team of our team of international advisors who work with our expat clients. Even they get information from our domestic team. So there's there's something to be said of the team aspect and how it informs our decision or our, advising to our clients and how we become better financial advisors because of that. And you don't get that with
it facilitates our own learning. And then also, we can bring that knowledge to our client. We're not just giving our client our own professional knowledge. We're giving our client all of the knowledge of all of the advisors and staff at our firm.
Yeah. So I think this kind of goes without saying, but it for those out there who are looking for a financial advisor and think that it's something they might, be going down that path, this is a good question to ask, right? What is your plan for, even if you have a younger advisor, interviewing a younger advisor, like what is their plan if, something were to happen? I don't know. I think that would be a safety net you'd kind of want to understand before entering in a very significant and important relationship.
When I was at Merrill Lynch, where I started my advising career, I remember talking to somebody, and of course I was trying to grow my business and get clients. And one of the questions that came across was, well, you're young. Why wouldn't I want to go with someone in their 50s or 60s that has decades of experience? To which I replied, yeah, but I'm going to be in the industry for 40 more years. Because I was in my 20s at the time. I don't know how old I was when I got in the industry, mid-20s, late 20s. And it's like, yeah, that person might not be there in 4 years, though. You still want an advisor. You still want a relationship, right? So that was kind of one of my responses to that when I was first getting in the business, just speaking to the longevity piece. But back to one thing, Polly, that you mentioned, the word access. I love that because my quick take on the robo piece is technology has done some good things in our industry, whether it's access for people that need access. Because again, there's a lot of advisors, ours included, our shop included, right? We have a minimum in place, and that's just because we can't take on everybody. We're not a good fit for everybody. So we have minimums, right? And there's still this market that frankly was underserved and probably still might be underserved. And that's where some of these solutions using technology gives access to people that want to come up with some sort of investment plan and get their allocation and have it spit out. And great, I'm 90 stocks, 20 or 90, 20. Yeah, good at math here. Where's my coffee at? I need more coffee too. Yeah, the 90-20 portfolio. That's how does that work? How does that work? 90-10, 90 stocks, 10% bonds. But in any case, right, technology can do some of that. We use technology when we're doing client portfolios, right? We use something called iRebel. That's why we love TD Ameritrade. That's why our domestic clients are primarily on the TD Ameritrade platform. That's one of the reasons why Schwab acquired TD Ameritrade, among other reasons, but they are going to incorporate and unleash that software because that makes advisors' jobs more efficient, and therefore we have more time to spend with our clients. So the whole robo thing, to me, it's advancement in technology. It's good for the industry. It's good for investors. It's good for people that are trying to grow their net worth over time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there could be this conception that, advisors, human advisors hate robo advisors, and some might, but no, I think it's filling an important niche, and it's like you said, it's giving access to people who maybe wouldn't otherwise have access to financial planning, or people who have, whether it's because they don't have enough assets or because their situation's really simple and they don't have enough complexity to make having an advisor necessary. They're just looking to say, well, I just want a little bit of guidance on how I invest my 401k. Great. A robo-advisor is probably exactly what that person needs. And so I think it's important, and it fills a niche, like you said, that is underserved and necessary.
And then puts them in the 90-20 portfolio.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why do 100%
Yeah.
when you
can have 110?
Yeah. The robo thing is definitely interesting because even like a lot of these robos that get started want to get acquired. They have an exit strategy at some point too. Speaking of succession, their succession is kind of like, well, let's exit and get acquired by a large financial firm that has a pretty big financial impact. So.
Well, or it's large financial firms that are offering robo-advisors, and they're seeing it as a way to start that relationship with a young professional maybe who isn't ready for a financial advisor. They're like, here, use our robo-advisor, and then they're going to kind of continue to ping you and say, I see you're using our robo-advisor. Would you like a human advisor? They use that as kind of like a lead generation tool. As like a starting point into maybe later on, as their needs get more complex, transitioning to a human advisor.
And as complexity, that's another big word, as complexity becomes more apparent in someone's financial life, which usually occurs after, a number of maybe it is job changes or promotions or something, right? Let's say you get to a director at your company's publicly traded. All of a sudden you have access to a stock plan. Right? You're getting stock grants, you're getting options, whatever it might be, right? Those are all complexities that we know how to advise on. You're not getting that from a robo.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
So like once you get to that point, it's different for everybody, right? Sometimes that point isn't until someone is in their late 50s and they're like, holy cow, I've done a really good job of accumulating assets, but now I've gotten to the point of distribution or planning for distribution. And that was that complexity tipping point, almost like an inflection point in their financial life. Maybe it's that stage of life, right? Maybe it is someone in their 30s. Like I said, maybe they're director level now at their company, whatever it might be, right? There's different inflection points for our clients and people out there. And it could be in your 20s. It could be in your 70s. Who knows? But once that inflection point occurs, I think that's when they realize, I want to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I want advice. And this robo option isn't going to do it. So how are we doing on time, Dan?
We're 28 minutes.
28?
Yeah.
I thought, where was the hand signal for 20?
You guys looked like you were enjoying yourselves, so I just let you keep going.
I mean, we are. This is a long
It's true.
podcast. We should probably
wrap it up.
We can have a take 2 of this
Do
one,
part
honestly.
2.
wind this thing down. There's so many. Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I feel like a lot of these topics, honestly, could be its whole own separate podcast. I feel like we've lightly
part 2.
touched on a lot of different topics.
Yeah. So hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. We'll let you get back to your days. Thank you all for tuning in. I kind of abruptly, putting the kibosh on here, but 28 minutes, that's pretty good. So I would say let's
Mitch just wants more coffee.
that too. Yeah. And let's get this youthful group together in the podcast again. So that was fun. Thank you for joining. We will see you next time on Gimme Some Truth.
Walkner Condon Financial Advisors is a registered investment advisor with the SEC. Registration with the SEC does not imply a certain level of skill or training. The opinions expressed by the participants of this podcast are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Walkner Condon Financial Advisors. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. Thanks for listening, and for further information, please visit walknercondon.com.